Automatic all points relay from Starfleet Command, Captain. Code 1.
Well, there it is. War. Didn't want it, but we've got it.
This is the episode where we are finally introduced to the Klingons, an alien race so pervasive in pop culture that you can actually learn how to speak Klingonese on Duolingo. We open on an uneasy Enterprise, where Kirk and Spock are discussing how peace negotiations with the Klingon Empire aren't going well. They are assigned to go to a pre-warp planet named Organia and set up defenses, since Starfleet intelligence is anticipating that the Klingons will try to seize it as a base due to its strategic location. On the way, they are attacked, but manage to blow the enemy ship to smithereens. As with the Romulans, the Federation's uneasy civility/state of constantly being at the brink of all-out war with the Klingons is a metaphor for the Cold War. Pretty much all depictions of war in the original series are supposed to represent either the Cold War or the Vietnam War. Before beaming down, Kirk leaves Sulu in command with orders to flee should the Klingon fleet arrive, even if it means abandoning Kirk and Spock on Organia to fend for themselves. Kirk and Spock arrive on the planet to find it a very peaceful, pastoral society, like visiting a Ren fair without all the horny cosplay. They are greeted by a man who calls himself Eoborn, who is the leader of the Council of Elders. Kirk tries to warn them of the impending Klingon invasion, but the Council of Elders seems unconcerned with the news, much to Kirk's frustration. Sure enough, the Klingons arrive and the Enterprise takes off, leaving Kirk and Spock behind. The Elders confiscate Kirk and Spock's weapons and give them civilian clothes to disguise them. It is then that we are introduced to Commander Kor. If you ever plan on watching Deep Space Nine, you might want to remember this guy. Kor announces to the Council that the Klingons are taking control of Organia, and he and Kirk butt heads almost immediately.
Were you?
Oh, he is Barona, one of our leading citizens.
And he has no tongue?
I have a tongue.
Good. You will be taught how to use it.
Excuse me? Okay, who snuck their fanfiction into the script? Kor is immediately suspicious of Spock, despite his cover story of being a Vulcan merchant. Kor has him taken away to be interrogated, and Kirk doesn't like this at all. Kor forces Barana to assist him in asserting the new Klingon order. Meanwhile, Spock's Vulcan mind manages to hold up to the Klingon Mind Sifter, a painful mental torture device. Spock suggests a little showcase of sabotage, and Kirk remembers seeing a pile of the Klingons' supplies.
It's a pleasure doing business with you, Mr. Spock.
Kirk and Spock sneak his little run in that night and blow up the munitions with a grenade. The Council of Elders are immediately like, what the f*** did you do? Kor wants Kirk executed for being a spy, but Eoborn, being a f***ing narc, tells Kor who Kirk and Spock really are. Kor has Spock locked away and tries to question Kirk.
Go climb a tree.
Kor gives Kirk 12 hours to divulge him everything he wants to know and locks him away with Spock, but Eoborn arrives to spring them, much to Kirk's confusion. Kor flips his shit when he finds out Kirk and Spock have escaped and broadcasts that he's just had 200 Organians executed, and more will follow if Kirk and Spock aren't turned over immediately. Eoborn and the Council are totally calm about this, reassuring Kirk and Spock that no one's been killed. Kirk is like, aight, y'all are idiots, Spock and I will handle this, and demand their phasers back.
Gentlemen, I have no great love for you. Despite that, Mr. Spock and I are going to go out there and quite probably die in an attempt to show you that there are some things worth dying for.
Kirk and Spock sneak into the Citadel where the Klingons have set up their base and hold Kor at phaser point while the Council does something. Kor smugly informs them that a convoy of Starfleet vessels is on its way, and that the Klingon fleet is ready for them. Kor's men burst in on them, but suddenly their weapons become literally too hot to handle. They try to go fisticuffs, but they can't touch each other without getting burned either. At the same time, the ship controls also become untouchable for the ships above. Eoborn and his entourage arrive and calmly inform them that the fighting must cease immediately, and that they are causing the strange phenomena.
You are stopping this? You?
It turns out that despite their unassuming appearance, the Organians are actually a race of non-physical, omnipotent aliens from another plane of existence. I wonder if they're related to a certain continuum. They detest violence of any sort, and are determined to put a stop to the war brewing between the Federation and the Klingon Empire. A literal deus ex machina. Kirk and Kor are both like, what the hell, man, we want to fight. Eoborn is like, no, talk this out like big boys or you're grounded. Now take your bad vibes and get out of here.
Well, Commander, I guess that takes care of the war. Obviously, the Organians aren't going to let us fight.
A shame, Captain. It would have been glorious.
Back on the Enterprise, Kirk reflects on his attitude toward going to war with the Klingons and admits he got a little caught up in the bloodlust.
Boy, that escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
But with the Federation and the Klingons back in peace negotiations, maybe, just maybe, there's hope that someday they'll be allies. Someday. After all, it's not like Kirk has any reason to hate the Klingons personally. Errand of Mercy has such an odd tone. It deals with heavy topics like war and prejudice, but the episode itself almost feels like a folktale for children, right down to the discount Sam and Frodo cosplays. He's giving me Walmart Prince Florian from Snow White realness? As I've said before, Kirk is supposed to be a representation of humanity itself, and this episode is very in character for him. This isn't the first time Kirk's had to fight the siren song of violence. Remember in Arena when he very nearly killed the Gorn? Getting swept up in moments of passionate emotion is very in character for Kirk. Typical Ares. In a way, Errand of Mercy feels like an odd echo of A Taste of Armageddon. In that episode, Kirk was the one to come into contact with two warring societies and meddled in their affairs, demanding that they come to a peaceful agreement. While Kirk obviously wasn't wrong in that episode, Kirk and the Federation at large have a tendency of interfering in other planets' business, imposing Federation ideals to non-Federation worlds. We have a word for that here on Earth. It's called imperialism. This is something that gets somewhat deconstructed in Star Trek Deep Space Nine when the Federation gets involved in the dispute between Bajor and the Cardassian Empire. Now, I'm not saying Federation bad, as it obviously has the best of intentions. I'm merely pointing out that this is a recurring thing that sort of goes unexamined for a long time. The world building of Star Trek was informed largely by white Americans, and while America once had to fight for its independence from England, it was not imperialized nearly to the extent of other places, like, say, India. America was pretty much left to its own devices and didn't throw a fit until King George raised the price on stamps. So we don't really appreciate what it means to be invaded by an outside force that starts demanding that we change our ways of life to suit their views. Which is a perfect segue into talking about the Prime Directive. Basically, the Federation has this rule of non-involvement with the natural development of alien civilizations. If a planet hasn't yet achieved warp capabilities, Starfleet is not to with it for any reason. Frequent Trek writer Gene L. Kuhn, who penned this very episode, is usually credited with the conception of the Prime Directive, and was said to reflect the contemporary opposition to the US's involvement in the Vietnam War, since many Americans felt that the conflict in Vietnam was, frankly, none of America's f***ing business. Obviously, this policy is often broken. In both Return of the Archons and Taste of Armageddon, Kirk and his crew directly interfere with the culture of a pre-warp civilization, and believe me, this is only the beginning. The Prime Directive is broken so often in Star Trek that it's almost kind of a joke. It's used as more of a plot device than an actual hardline rule that Starfleet captains actually follow.
I'd like to ask you something, Captain to Captain. The Prime Directive. How often have you broken it?
Broken it? Never.
Why the f*** you lying? Why you always lying? Oh my god. Stop your f***ing lying.
For a better idea of the Prime Directive, I'd suggest watching The Next Generation's Who Watches the Watchers. Alright, let's address the elephant in the room. The Klingon makeup. RIP comment section. So John Colicos, who plays Kor, was white. Apparently he had a lot to do with the conception of the makeup design for the Klingons. He wanted them to look reminiscent of Genghis Khan, which is why the Klingons have Fu Manchus. It's also why all of these white men are painted brown. Obviously, by 1967, minstrel shows were no longer in fashion, but that was not to say that racial cosplay was not still a problem.
Mr. Golightly, once again, I must protest! If you don't stop with that phonograph right this minute, I'm going to go to the police department!
Now obviously the Klingons are not meant to be literal Asian people, but that does not make this yellow face / brown face / whatever face any less uncomfortable. In the script, Gene L. Kuhn literally describes the Klingons' appearance as Oriental. What can I say but yikes? I can hear you all now running to the comments to tell me, but it was a different time. Yes, Gerald, I'm well f***ing aware, and I'm not having this conversation again. Sometimes TOS does shit that would be unacceptable in today's world. And when that happens, we're going to talk about it. Klingon makeup does get an upgrade over time, adding dramatic facial prosthetics to the actors' faces, and they stop looking so much like Asian caricatures. TOS didn't have the budget for fancy special effects makeup. Spock's ears alone were already a heavy expense. So this is the result we get. This is lampshaded in the TOS / Deep Space Nine crossover Trials and Tribulations.
Those are Klingons?
They are Klingons. And it is a long story.
Despite the insensitivities, Errand of Mercy is one of my favorite episodes. I could watch a whole season of Kirk and Spock running around in civvies doing chaotic shit together, and John Colicos' Core is one of my favorite series antagonists. He and Shatner have great banter in every scene they have together. It sucks that Core only shows up once in TOS, but like I said, he does come back in Deep Space Nine, so there's that. In Deep Space Nine, since by then the Klingons and the Federation are allies, Core is a lot more fun. He's a lot like Dargo from Farscape. Speaking of which, friends of the channel Sarah Ezat, Jack Cram, and Josh Gosden host a Farscape podcast together called Muppets, Sex, and Trauma. That's Muppets, sex, not Muppet Sex. You can listen to it here on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app. If you're a fan of Farscape, then it's a really fun podcast to listen to. The three of them are so charming and insightful. And in an upcoming episode, yours truly is going to be a guest on Muppets, Sex, and Trauma. So if you just can't get enough of my sexy voice, you might want to tune in. I'll provide a link to the podcast channel in the description so you can check it out for yourself. Until next time!
He's no spy.
You object to us taking him?
He's done nothing. Nothing at all.
You are concerned.
He's my friend.
Out of the way, Organian.
I'm sorry, sir. We did not notice you.
Next time, keep your eyes open, or I'll shut them permanently.
You didn't really think I was going to beat his head in, did you?
I thought you might.
You're right.
This friend of yours, the Vulcan, I will have him dissected.